Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen. Gold Standard College Basketball Podcast. I'm Big Papa. That's Bobby Hoops. Hoops, how you feeling today?
I'm good. I'm jealous of the coffee you're down right now. I need a second.
Yeah, I'm hitting that second Nespresso today.
Yeah, season's over. Energy's maybe not quite as high. It was an emotional last week or so, especially on your end
100%.
of kind of postseason activity.
Yeah. I mean, I could sit here and tell you that if anything, my energy like ramped up for
Yeah, I'd say.
Especially 2 episodes ago when we were talking about, Cal emergency pod, he's out of here.
Mm-hmm.
I talked about like at that point, I think I'd slept maybe a combined, I don't even know, 10 hours in 2 days at best, 12. It was awesome. I don't regret it, but I very quickly crashed on like day 3 and realizing on the coaching search front, I was like, I don't really know if I'm built for this. Like, I like to
I don't
think
know
that I
if
was.
anyone is built for it.
No. And I mean, it's always good fun for especially the first 24 hours going into day 2 because you're really riding a
Yeah.
high.
Yeah.
But yeah, it gets to a point, especially in that Discord, where people are sending flight tracker stuff, and when the moderators don't put it, apparently, I didn't know this. I'm new to Discord as of January of this year, where a moderator can put it on slow mode. So
Yeah.
like the Kentucky channel of all of us, I mean, that thing can just pile on messages, and there's no stopping the speed of how fast they come in, how many at one time. And it just got to a point where I was like, okay, I have to I got a timeout here because it's like a range and primarily of like college kids up to like upper 20s. And then you've got a few of us who are in our 30s because we've said it out loud in the group. But otherwise, like that's all it is. So it's just a bunch of 20-year-olds who probably sitting in class or not in class and are just like firing on the message board. And I'm like, I've got to like go change a poopy diaper. So I'll be back.
Yeah, man. It's been even I'm not a Kentucky fan, but it was a little tiring on my end to follow it all. Of Cal's gone, but wait, maybe is he not gone? And then we've reached out to Nate Oates, but Nate Oates has said no, or Alabama's like, pay this buyout, sure. And it's like, nah, we don't want to pay that buyout. We've reached out to Scott Drew, and it looks like it's going to be Scott Drew. But maybe it's not going to be Scott Drew. Maybe Scott Drew's family doesn't want to move, and now the Lord's telling him, nah, it's not. We're going to stay. And it's like, the Lord yet to take an L.
You going to go up against God himself?
Yeah. If God says no, it's no, buddy. Then, you try Dan Hurley and nope. What was the number? I mean, they offered to like more than double his contract, I think.
12 and a half.
And it's a man who's not motivated by that. He's good where he's at. And then it's like, are we going to wait around for the former Florida coach, Billy Donovan, who's currently coaching in the NBA, but the Bulls are still in season? Can we afford to wait around? And then out of nowhere, well, maybe it's not out of nowhere, Mark Pope, BYU's head coach, former player, alum of Kentucky, national champion. What did he play? Power forward? He's a big guy.
Yeah, forward and center switched off.
Mark Pope is the hire. You have a new coach. There have been a wide range of emotions on the Mark Pope when the news broke that it was going to be him, and then I think it felt like most of the fan base kind of swung back on the positive side of things with lots of NIL money being committed in the wake of the announcement. Maybe people that weren't fans of Cal, who now that we've got a new coach in there, an alum, all right, I'll pony up now.
Yeah.
A lot has happened. You have a new coach. You've got some recruits who are sticking with Cal. You've got players transferring out. You've got players transferring in. Mark Pope's bringing some of his people in. Where are you at with Mark Pope and your new head coach? It's a new era.
Yeah, depends on like what day and timestamp you would have asked me. Like general sense, that night when it broke, and of course it like happened basically the same way Con Man news broke, which was it happened at like 10 p.m. at night, just out of nowhere, caught everybody like a haymaker. And it was kind of funny that it all like national media guys broke it basically all at the same time on Twitter and being like, we're hearing that Kentucky is pursuing and honing in on Mark Pope, which, most national guys, they won't go to be like they're signing, but when they start putting out the words,
Yeah.
they're zoning in on a guy that's code for they're about to sign a deal.
It's about
And
to be. Yeah.
yeah, so when you get all the
Which
big,
they were saying the same thing about Scott Drew pretty much.
they were, and I legitimately think, okay, take Scott Drew. I legitimately think it was going to happen with Scott. I started to
It
get
seemed
on
like
board
he
with it.
wanted to do it.
He did, and he made it known that he wanted to, but can't really fault a guy who's like, you know what? I probably need to like talk to my wife about it, talk to my kids, see what they think. He's got 2 kids in high school and I think 1 in college, so it's a legitimate reason. I totally makes sense.
Well,
They
and it blew my mind to look it up, and I forgot. I mean, he's only 53. That's not very old for a
no,
head coach. He's been at Baylor for 20 years. He was hired at 33. His
yeah,
family has they've been in Waco, Texas for a long time.
Waco's all they know.
That's
So
hard.
yeah, when I get it. When you've established roots, and Scott seems like the kind of guy where he's very involved in the community. Um, Waco is definitely a lot smaller town city than say like Lexington, where they said, privacy, he gets that for the most part in
Mhm.
Waco and really values it versus like if he was to come to Lexington, there's like zero chance
Not
he
anymore.
gets privacy. I mean, we we were seeing videos like, and it wasn't just because Cal decided to leave. It would happen all the time. But I mean, like people would take videos of him walking his dog on the sidewalk, which not a great look when you're pushing one of your dogs in a carrier, but like whatever. I'm teach their own. I was just like, of course, of course. But that's his thing. It's fine.
Yeah.
The other dog was walking beside, and I kind of wanted to be like, what's does one dog get preference over the whatever? Just great. Yeah, just a great look
Yeah.
overall. So Scott values privacy. They fly um, his family up for a day trip, do a quick look, go back, talk about it overnight. Next morning, Scott says, we prayed on it. We don't feel like the Lord is leading us to go to Lexington. We feel like we need to stay put here in Waco. And, he didn't give like all the reasons why. It doesn't matter. We don't deserve to know. That's not our
Yeah.
business. It's just like, yeah, we feel called to stay here, which is like, okay. And I already said it, but like, the big joke was like, well, kind of hard to fight against God on that one. So I
God
don't
yet
really
to
know.
take an L.
Yeah. Don't really know if we were going to win on that one. So
That
we'll
ain't
just
gonna
have to
happen.
firm handshake and say, we'll move on. But yeah, day of also later that afternoon, they fly up to Stores and present what was joked as the Godfather offer to Dan Hurley. Said they met for about 3 hours. So the fact that like Dan was the fact that he even met with him tells me there was at least a smidge of interest of like, okay, like I'll
Of
talk
course
to you.
there was.
Yeah. Yeah. When money's big enough at $12.5 million a year, okay, I'll listen.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and again, I think it was very fair to say, it was like 99.9% chance he wasn't going to leave, but big enough bag makes you at least be like, I could sit down for a couple hours and
Make
chat
him
with you.
say no.
Yeah, and he did. Kudos to him. I know we've talked about it, but like he's from Jersey. His wife's from the north as well. Their family's from there. Kids get, the whole deal. It's just like,
Yeah.
why does Dan want to leave? And, he proved it by saying no and has talked about like, I love UConn. I want to go for a three-peat. Word is, think he wants to make a jump at the NBA if he were to leave UConn. So with UConn, like very much being in that blue blood stratosphere,
Yeah.
it would be kind of weird to make what I perceive as a linear move, not necessarily a vertical to,
Yeah.
Even if what Kentucky, say if it was like Kansas, UCLA, it would still feel very linear. So I'm sure for him, he's like, I got everything I need here. They'll give me a bump. Like, instead of getting paid $4 million, I'm sure UConn will be like, we'll pay you $8 million. And, he'll be like, okay, great. So
he's saying he came out too and said that in the past he has turned down offers for more money to rather just be where he wants to be, even if it means he's making a little less.
I respect that.
Yeah, me too. I'm just saying it sounds like this ain't the first time he has said no to more money.
Yeah, I'll admit there was when Scott Drew said no, and they were putting out like, all right, plane flight, Mitch Barnhart, they're heading to stores. I was like, oh, it's happening. Like, do it, Mitch. Show them what you got. Swing and a miss. Okay, so after that was over with, they basically didn't waste any time. And we come to find out what we all thought and perceived was, okay, Billy Donovan is next with the Chicago Bulls. What got told was they reached out to his camp. Camp says, yeah, Billy would love to have a conversation. His wife's already made it known she'd be great leaving Chicago, head back to Lexington. But they literally have, I think at that point they had one regular season game left. And then leading up to today, actually, it was like, we got to get ready for a playing game. So I also respect that. Like, Billy's not checking out to be like, okay, I'll talk to you.
He's still got to finish his job.
Like, I'm on contract. I got to coach these guys, even if they don't really care or if I don't really care. He obviously cares enough to be like, my attention's here with the Bulls. I'm going to coach. When we are done, if that means we win the playing game, we're still going to play. I'll talk to you after, which could have meant he could have been 2 weeks. Who knows? And so at that point, I kind of didn't blame Mitch for being like, I can't really stick around. Kentucky fans are very familiar with Billy Donovan, being that it's the Charlie Brown situation of, we're gonna do this, right? We're gonna kick football, and then pulls it from us last second. So he's done that twice. I'm not saying that's
I thought the whole time, the whole idea of at the time having to like, maybe you as an AD can risk waiting around if it's like your number one option. Like, if this is the guy that we have to go get, then maybe you can risk having your fans go nuts while you wait around for this guy's season to end. But at this point, Donovan was your third, fourth pick.
Right.
And not that he's a bad coach, but it's like, you can't be waiting around on your fourth pick.
No.
We got to hire somebody.
Well, and if the portal and NIL wasn't a thing like it was a decade ago, you probably could. You could probably do that and be like, well, that's fine. Like, I'm going to go after high schoolers. Yeah, we're fine. We can wait a little bit. But right now, you can't do that. So with that said, find out on Mitch's list, it was basically, well, let me also insert this. I did read in here that Nate Oates actually got the first call. Whether or not he was the number one guy, he did get a phone call. And that was probably just we're going to feel it out, see what Nate thinks. Now, Nate could have easily been the fourth guy. I don't know. But I just know that he got a phone call. Not going to go into his personal stuff. Seems like it's not great, family reasons why, but that was one thing. And then the AD at Alabama, who Mitch is really good friends with, had was like, he has a buyout of, I think they said a little bit over 10 million. They said 18, but regardless, it's double digit numbers of a buyout. And he's like, we're not going to negotiate his buyout. If you want to pay it, okay, that's one thing. But otherwise, we're going to go ahead and tell you up front, we're not going to negotiate his buyout. I think Mitch was just like, I'm not going to do that. Even if, say, Nate was very interested in leaving, despite his circumstances. So with that said, they moved on and went to Scott Drew and didn't work out from there. And then obviously we lead up to Mark Pope. I think we come to see that on Mitch's list, Mark was very high. And it was, I guess good for Mitch to maybe feel like, well, I got one of my top guys on my list. For me, when the news broke, seems to be a cycle. When the news broke for basically 2 hours, once again, couldn't sleep. My energy level was absolutely through the roof. You thought I had hit 2 Nespressos back to back within 5 minutes. And I am what felt like the majority of the fan base was just in WTF mode. We're like, we're really doing it. Like, we are really about to go hire Mark Pope to be the head coach at Kentucky.
Yeah.
And it was the weird of Cal leaves, a Hall of Fame guy who won a national championship, put 50 dudes in the NBA, to we swing and miss on Scott Drew and Dan Hurley. And then we meet you weren't willing to wait on Billy Donovan. So I had jokingly said, I thought Mark Pope was a plan Z of, well, if we literally can't get anybody, we can get Mark. And I've said it to you and to a few others. I'm like, Mark always felt like at the moment, the guy that like, you could always get him. You don't have to worry about Mark leaving BYU. He's not getting forced out. He's not even looking for other jobs. It was just, if you want Mark, he's always going to be there. Please feel like you swung a miss on, in my head, I was like, literally everybody before Mark. Yeah. So that's how it came off to me, whether that's right or wrong. And yeah, that night, I was like, I might have to just take a walk in the middle of the night here in Broadacres and blow some steam, because in the moment, like, I couldn't believe it. I felt like we're settling for a guy that had 0 postseason wins on his resume, and he's only coached at Utah Valley and obviously BYU previously for the last 5 years. So that was, in a nutshell, what kind of led up to Mark Pope finally getting the call. Now, I wish somebody in psychology or whatever could do a case study on all of us basically flipping our emotions in less than 24 hours and being like,
I mean, as maybe. An outsider watching all this, mostly through you and through Twitter and stuff like that, but like I was blown away at how quickly it went from we are storming the Capitol, so to speak, in Lexington, and we are Mitch Barnhart. We gotta fire this guy. This is unacceptable. To 24 hours later, we are back, baby. Back. Mark Pope, Pope. We got NIL money coming in. What happened? And before you, like, I've as someone who's been through a lot of crazy coaching searches, all for football, like, I can understand. And what's the KSR guy? Matt Jones had a tweet basically saying, like, which I think was a pretty rational thought of, like, on one hand, you can hold up on one hand and say that, like, this probably isn't the best hire in terms of, like, Kentucky and what we can get and what we at least can perceive we should be in terms of having an amazing coach. But at the same time, I'm gonna support him. He at least deserves a shot. He deserves to have the fan base behind him. He deserves a shot. And so let's rally. And if it doesn't go well, okay, then we can light the torches and burn it down
Yeah.
and
Let's do it
go
again.
do it again. But like, so, and I just thought that was I feel like I've been in that place 3 times in terms of football of like, yeah, Derek Dooley, okay, that's not very exciting, but like we're gonna get behind him, and well, that
Yeah.
sucked. Butch Jones, okay, I wanted John Gruden, but we'll get behind him, I guess, and that sucked. And Jeremy Pruitt, okay, that sucks, but we'll get behind him and support him. And so I guess I appreciated the at least to some degree, I figured that was a part of the emotional swing of the fans of like, hey, this guy is an alum. He won a championship here.
Yeah.
He's a Kentucky guy. Let's get behind him. But I think there was more to it.
There is. And I'm glad you did the precursor. It saves me time from having to sift through it all. So, yeah, I mean, it was a very wild swing of the pendulum and just fully, and I'm there. I'm like, we're back. Some would be like, did we ever leave? And I'm like, we haven't been back for over 5 years. Like, but yeah, we're back. And I definitely had multiple buddies when I posted on Instagram who Tennessee fans, they're all like, oh, I know what you're feeling. I've been here before. And I knew what they were, poking, making fun, that whole deal. But here's what at least we're kind of getting into, and you were leading up. So, yes, I am in that camp of like, all right, he is our coach. Like, I'm just not going to waste my time on being soy boy, throwing a pity party, and being like, I can't believe this. Because it's like, well, I felt that for about 2 hours, and now I'm like, he's our coach. And let me be clear. I'm learning 100% nostalgia is a hell of a drug. I mean, when they're pumping the 96 content and when Pope is talking about Rick Pitino, all this stuff, I'm like, oh, I'm feeling some type of way right now. And when I'm in the group chat with my dad and my uncle and all stuff, and I can see them getting fired up, and I'm like even when we were watching the presser, I don't know, Didi can make fun of me or anybody. I don't care. I got tears in my eyes, like watching and listening to Mark Pope just talk about what being at Kentucky means to him during his time, pointing to all his boys over there off to the side and be like, those are my guys on the 96 team, talking about like they will let me have it in a group chat. Like they don't care to tell me what they're thinking if I mess up, whatever, or he hasn't divulged this of like what they're thinking when Cal was still there over the last couple of years, the whole deal. Sure. And he was like, I would walk from Utah to Kentucky to have this job. So
I like when seeing clips of, and like folks, if you don't know the introductory press conference from Mark Pope, they packed Rupp Arena.
They
packed it out.
For a presser.
Yes.
They didn't even have all the seats in, because they were intentionally moving some of it out because they pulled one of the buses in to let off a bunch of former players.
I don't know whose idea that was, if it was Pope or somebody else was like, hey, let's get the entire championship team on this bus to walk out with our new, like, what a great move. That was a great idea.
Banging. And they said they were probably anticipating anywhere from like 8 to 10 maybe coming, which is still quite a bit of people. No, they ended up packing out. I think they ended up saying it was like close to 18,000 people were in there, which is banana land for
a press
hour-long presser. And there was like some weird beauty in that of, or we're kind of back. Like we feel like we're ourselves again, and that it's not, which again, we're all trying to segue and move on from Cal, and it's probably going to take a couple weeks because I'll be honest, I'm not mad about Pope and administration slightly and subtly taking shots at the previous coaching staff and how they ran business, which was you focus on Cal, you focus on the guys that he brings in. Cal is we are lucky to have these guys come play for us. Pope is dudes coming in are going to understand they are lucky to even put on the jersey, and it's just a different philosophy. I'm not
Oh, yeah.
here to sway the listening audience which way is correct and which way is not. Personally, I'm probably in the middle. Like, I still think there's a good level of like, yeah, like we are kind of lucky if some of these dudes accept, a scholarship or whatever kind of offer to come play at Kentucky, like because they don't have to at the end of
Yeah.
the day. Um, Especially now with NIL, like, yeah, some of these guys deserve quite a big check to come here.
Yeah.
But it does get back to, yeah, there is probably some level of, yeah, I should feel honored that I get to come to a school like this and play because I don't know. I'm not going to get in the weeds of like kids recruiting and that whole deal, but I know from a Kentucky fan standpoint, that's what it's been like pretty much all before Cal. Then when Cal came and his philosophy works, as I've said before, when you win, you can say whatever you want.
Yeah.
But when you're not winning, and then you start making comments about saying like SEC tournament doesn't matter, we're built for March, then you don't win in March, and you continue to do the man, I can't wait for the next recruiting class, talking down to fans, all that stuff. So really felt like a fresher breath air when Pope gets up and is like, this is your team. Like we're lucky to be here as a coaching staff. Players will feel lucky to be here because you guys continue to show out all the time. You could maybe argue the very cult-ish acts of the amount of one people that showed up for a presser, two that want every single player to come through to be like, you're lucky to put that jersey on. Which, again, I'm more in the middle on that.
Sure. Well,
But
even
it
just
just,
from the sense of like how long has it been with Cal of like it for so long is like this is clearly about me.
yeah,
And not that it's we don't do this for the fans and it's not like that's the fans are not the most important thing in the world. But like man, it's like how long have I longed for the coach to just at least acknowledge these people who spend all their money and all their time supporting this thing
yeah,
and who is so combative with the press and with the fans for so long.
yeah,
And here's this guy coming in, and maybe it's not the biggest, baddest hire in the world, but like he is 180 degrees opposite.
yeah,
Like that's awesome.
yeah. It was just a nice change of pace. To Could you have probably said like we all could have seen this coming from a mile away that like
Oh yeah, yeah,
naturally when an administration is trying to move on from somebody that does it one way, you probably are going to go the about opposite for the next person.
yeah.
Or
Intro press conference 101.
yeah,
Let's get in there, get everybody fired up and behind us, and
yes,
oh yeah,
very, very I'm running for president type feeling level,
yeah,
which again, everybody's probably going to be absolutely bananas, hanging on every word you say. I was. It was awesome. I had a lot of adrenaline. I enjoyed
yeah,
it. But then when you start getting into the what does Mark Pope bring to the table? Because again, there was already skepticism on what he hasn't done. It's like,
yeah,
well, let's talk about what he is going to bring to the program, which is going to be different than what Cal does, which Cal is very, I'm going to go get the best raw talent out of high school,
yep,
maybe flare in a couple pieces from the portal, but otherwise, we're going to go as young as possible. We're going to create driving lanes and just tell them, go get a bucket. If you can't get to the rim, dish it out, shoot a three, hope you make it. Again, just going to say talent wins out. It worked a couple times. Um, Mark Pope does not operate that way. Mark Pope is a
nope,
very, here's my system. We're going to go find the pieces that fit this system.
yeah,
You may have all the talent in the world, but if you don't fit anywhere in my system, sorry, actually, there's plenty of other schools you can go talk to. You're not going to be here, which I'm like, pretty impressive. You got some, take some guts to be able to tell some of the best kids in the out of high school or even out of the portal, if they come knocking and be like, actually, I don't think you're a good fit, and I'm not going to waste your time or ours. So we're going to get a lot more guys, probably, if we're talking high school rankings that are below 30, anytime between 30 and 100, we'll probably get a lot more of those guys, 4-star, 3 stars, whatever. We may every now and then, I bet, get 1 or 2 very top guys out of high school. Probably going to be more heavy on portal dudes. So we're already starting to see some guys from BYU transfer.
Which one of those was a pretty big name? I can't remember the white
yeah,
kid.
I can't think of his name at the moment. I think his first name's Christian, but he committed 2 years ago to BYU. Then went on his mission within the Mormon faith.
That's right.
To somewhere in the deep parts of Africa. And so he's been there balling for 2 years. Come to find out, they can only, again, this is just what I've been listening to.
Yeah.
A lot of it's been coming from Reddit, which I trust Reddit. So take it over there.
Reddit.
Of course. So Reddit says, of the Mormon faith, if you're on a mission, you are actually not encouraged to play full court basketball. They recommend you only play half court. Also said, we recommend not swimming, which I was like, okay, different. I don't know.
Okay.
Whatever. So part of it was, we don't want you to get injured. Okay. I get that. So anywho, my man's been playing a lot of half court pickup over the last 2 years. I'm excited for him to come.
So whatever you want to say, apparently he can ball.
He can ball. So he's coming in. It'll be interesting on those fronts. I'm in that place of, I just got to trust Pope and his future staff when he puts it together and finalizes it, supposedly this week. That, like, whoever you bring in, it's going to fit the system. Let's talk system real quick. System's going to be a lot of movement. We'll be 5 out, which off the cusp you may be like, isn't that what Cal and them did? Sort of. But again, Cal's was more of, we're going to spread it out. And if we do have a big man like Ugana was just going up, set a screen so that, again, DJ would try to curl the corner and get to the rim. We are going to spread it out, but we're going to have like 3 guys constantly moving all the time in offense. Pope was going on to say, we're going to make teams pay for trying to switch on us, switch on a back screen, whatever. And that could mean that a guy is cutting to the rim off of a screen. It could mean a guy is driving, coming off the baseline to a corner 3. It's like, the whole point is, we're going to make you pay for thinking what we're going to run on offense, but we're going to let you have it. So I was like, sounds great to me. And my man said, I lean heavily on analytics, because he's like, we joke about ball don't lie. He's like, numbers don't lie. If numbers say we're trying to do one thing this way and it's not going great because we're not getting the most points per possession, we're going to go this direction because that is working. I was like, man, this sounds so elementary, but I'm like, this is great. And he then,
again, compared to the last forever of, we're just going to get the best talent and roll the ball out there.
Yeah.
And sometimes that works, and sometimes it doesn't. And more often than not, lately, it hasn't worked.
No. And he went on to say also that, and on defense, we're going to change it up every now and then. Make offenses be on their toes. Might run man a couple of possessions, then throw it into a 2-3 or 1-3-1, full court press, whatever. And I mean, they pay into the fans, and of course, everybody's just like, thank you that you would even be willing to change your defensive concept, versus Cal's, which is always, nope, we just go man to man. That's it, because that's all they run in the NBA, which probably gets back to the epitome of Cal with, all NBA, everything. And now it's like, oh, we have a guy who is hyper-focused and fixated on, you are hiring me to win basketball games here at Kentucky. It is not my primary goal to put guys in the NBA. It is not my job to flex about that. I'm not going to tell y'all as fans how to feel. You can criticize me. He did joke and say on his show, he's like, honestly, a lot of y'all are probably going to call me out on a thing or two I did, and I'm going to look back and be like, yeah, they were right. Like, that was a really dumb call. I shouldn't have done that. Whether or not he'll do that a lot, we'll see. But, this could be an epic flop. I will be completely honest. It could be a flop, and say 2 years goes by, and we're middle of the pack in the league, getting bounced in like the second round of the SEC tournament, maybe barely scraping into the NCAA and not doing well. If that happens, then we may be right back where we started. Like you jokingly said, we're getting our pitchforks out. Tell Mark, get out of town. Thank you. The nostalgia shot in the arm was awesome for a hot second, but I said in one place, I can't remember if it's on Discord or whatever, but I was like, the nostalgia piece can't carry him for life. Like, Cal got a very long leash because he won so much so early on. And it was deserved. If Pope wins, great. Everything else leading up to winning is just it's even better. Because again, everybody's in, we're all in the same camp, but you got to win. If you don't, then we'll just be like, hey, that was a really cool moment. This just doesn't work. There is the part where it's a little scary because we've never Joe B. Hall was a former guy. He was hired, but Joe B. coached in the 70s. So it's been a very long time since Kentucky even dabbled in the idea of let's look at a former player, possibly hire them. And now we're doing it. But it just seems to be a different age on the way basketball is run. He seems to understand it. He's talking about hiring a GM to run NIL, to run portal stuff, which is like, we need that. Cal was just whatever. We'll get there later, which was like, you can't do that. So, yes, everything right now feels awesome, and we'll see. I'm fine listening to the jokes and all that stuff about like Pope hasn't won any postseason games, and it's like, he has to go prove himself at some point.
Well, and I do think to some, and that is a fair criticism, I think, for a program like Kentucky, who is used to winning a lot in the postseason, and we're bringing in a guy who's not won an NCAA tournament game. I do think one thing that was impressive about what he did, especially this last year at BYU, was jumping from the West Coast Conference into the Big 12, which is probably the deepest conference in terms of college basketball right now, in terms of teams top to bottom. That's probably the best conference in college basketball. And they went right into the Big 12 and played pretty well. I mean, I think they came in like 4th or 5th in the conference, but I mean, that conference is so good. And to jump in from a much lower level in terms of talent conference, not miss that much of a beat, and still have a pretty good season. To me, that's something that I would be encouraged by. That maybe this guy knows what he's doing. And say what you will too about BYU, but like, man, that guy has at his time at BYU had a lot of different, and to some people might say a lot more hurdles to success because of all the specific and unique rules that school puts on a coach and puts on what kind of players, and it can be hard. I can imagine it's hard to recruit to a school like that.
It came out that apparently BYU, if not the hardest, it's one of the hardest schools to recruit kids to, because there's contracts for kids to sign, whether or not they are of the Mormon faith coming into it. But they
code of conduct and all that stuff, and so it's but I was reading stuff that Pope, the last few years, he's over there recruiting in the Middle East, and he's been in Africa, and he's been
Yeah.
And some of that's because of the Mormon mission and all that. But like, this guy's had a very different kind of path to get here and
Yeah.
has overcome hurdles that other coaches don't have to achieve somewhat a decent amount of success at the
Yeah.
profession. So I I understand the concerns, but I also think it's fair to point to certain things. I'm like, yeah, this guy's like, it ain't all like we it ain't all bad. We've got some things to point to here. Like, this actually could be a good hire.
Yeah. We'll have to see. He has to stack the pieces. And
Totally. Yeah.
it seems like he is going that direction. The man's not an idiot. Like, he
No.
was a Rhodes Scholar, went to med school, dropped out after 3 years. His big joke has been the medical society actually celebrated when I decided to drop out of med school to pursue my MBA or my
Yeah.
coaching career, which was pretty funny. But his whole point was, I love basketball. I just love nerding out over analytic stuff. Even when you listen to him talk, you can kind of tell he's a little bit of a nerd, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's just like, I just love basketball. I love teaching kids. I love trying to help them succeed and win and all those things. Yeah, and it's just a different approach than what we're used to, and it will take time. I mean, we've been used to it for 15 years. Like, that is all we've known, which is, let's go get the best players. We will figure it out in 8 months, and then we're gonna go make a run. Not anymore. So we'll see if it pans out. I'm excited. Took me a minute to get there, but I'm there. I'm in.
Yeah.
I'm here for Pope, and hopefully he can take us back to the promised land. And maybe he's here for a long time. That's my dream. He'd be here for a long time. Then I can finally feel like a lot of crews do when a coach kind of hangs it up, which is like, man, I'm really going to miss this guy. With
Yeah.
Cal, maybe one day I'll kind of get to that point of like, man, I really miss him. But right now I'm like,
Good luck.
yeah.
See ya.
So even when Rick Pitino put out a 3-minute video, just putting out his congratulations for Mark Pope, and I don't know if he was joking or not, but when he was like, if NIL's if he needs help on NIL, he's like, I'll cut a check and send it to Kentucky. And I'm
That
like,
was wild. That was a wild
hey,
comment. And for those that don't know, Pitino coached Pope when Pitino was at Kentucky,
correct.
which is why
So,
he has such an affinity for him.
right. So Rick Pitino was the coach at Kentucky for 8 years, I think. Mark Pope was their national championship team. Rick would go on to leave, currently coaches at St. John's. I don't imagine many St. John's fans were happy about that comment,
Yeah,
but
that was like, this guy's a sitting head coach at St. John's talking about how he will cut an NIL check to Kentucky.
maybe deep down, Rick's always been like, I just want to go home, man. I just want to go home.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
I was banging the drum in our group
you were.
text
You sent
after,
a lot.
Oates didn't work, Hurley didn't work, all that. Hey, sometimes you have to go back to go forward.
Recycling that video. Thank you, PMT and Big Cat. Sometimes you got to go back to move forward.
Rick Pitino.
There was a slight second. I never said it, but I was like, maybe you call Rick. It's like maybe for 3 years, you're just like, all right, Rick, let's just do it. Come on. Even though before
the
that,
content alone would be amazing.
I was like, no, Rick cannot be the head coach again. But then Pope gets up on stage and he says, oh, did you all say you want to do a home and home with St. John's? Which, of course, everybody went crazy for. And that would be cool because Rick hasn't been back. To be honest, if everybody remembers, the last time he was at Rupp, he flipped everybody off walking off the court. So it was like, well, I think it's time. We can laugh about it and be like, hey, you remember when you did that? Yeah. No big deal. And maybe we'll get there too with Cal one day. But for now, when they show up to Rupp, I hope we beat them by 100.
Can't wait. Can't wait to watch that again.
So, look, I've spent a lot of time talking about Pope, and maybe that was going to happen regardless since the last time we had talked.
Oh, yeah.
I want you to take, however many minutes you need to just talk about whatever you want when it comes to what do you think about the season with UT. you could talk about. I mean, I guess we don't even have to talk about the Final Four of the championship game. Other than if you're like, I'm glad Purdue lost. Nobody's mad about that.
Very glad.
Talk about what's going on heading into off season. If you've been hearing any about or news on the portal, scuttlebutt on recruiting, whatever else. So take it away. What's your thoughts on the state of Tennessee?
Well, like I said after the Purdue loss, I mean, yeah, it was a tough loss at the end of the season, but I really think this was, at least if we're just talking about Barnes and the Barnes era. I mean, I could go further and talk about, for the last quarter century. It was probably the best season that Tennessee basketball has had. And I think I'd say the three big things of winning the SEC outright. That was a big thing for Barnes. Going to the Elite Eight, another, again, as far as any coach has ever taken a team. I mean, I think Rick has cemented himself as probably the best coach in Tennessee history. He's been here almost a decade at this point, and
Yeah.
2 SEC titles, 1 outright. He's gone to an Elite Eight. So, I mean, those 2 things were like, make a deep run and you're good enough to win the SEC, so win it. And we did both of those things. And you had a National Player of the Year finalist in Dalton Connect, who, I mean, he in only one season he has cemented himself as a legend in this program. SEC Player of the Year, first team All-American. He's going to be a first-round draft pick. Seems like he's probably going to be a lottery pick. So in the first half of the draft, so it was an awesome season. I mean, it probably ended a game or 2 shorter than what we hoped for, but like I said in the episode we talked about it, I really think there's 2 to 3 teams that, push comes to shove, were better than us. And we ran into one of them in the Elite Eight in Purdue. Well, I say better than us. I'm still a little frosty about Purdue. I still think, look up and down those rosters. I'd still take our team over theirs, but they had Zach Edey. So only so much you can do there. Anyway, it was an awesome season. And I was very pleased with it and had a lot of fun watching them. Looking forward to next year. I mean, we're gonna look very different. You lose Connect, you lose Vescovy and Josiah Jordan James to graduation. A couple of interesting portal news. Freddie DeLeon, he entered the portal. That wasn't a surprise to anyone. I don't think, as he was a guy I feel like I talked about even before the season as someone I was kind of hopeful to see, mostly because of his offensive game, but he barely saw the court this year. And by all accounts, it's because he couldn't figure it out on the defensive side. And if you're going to play for Rick Barnes and you can't figure it out on defense, you are not going to play. You will not play. Or you better dang well be an all-world player on offense like Connect was, because let's be honest, Connect wasn't much of a defensive player, but DeLeon wasn't that. So he's gone. That wasn't a surprise. DJ Jefferson is another guy who he entered the portal. Not again. He might have saw less than 10 minutes total this year. So again, not surprises there. Tobe Awaka entered the portal, which there were kind of whispers of that for at least down the stretch of the season. And it seemed like for him, it was less of, and I think it officially did come out kind of saying that this is why, but it really wasn't so much a NIL thing and him wanting more money. There was also some whispers, he's a New York guy, maybe, St. John's, because I think they were pretty heavy on him coming out of high school in recruiting, that maybe he wanted to go home, which I can understand that. But it turned out the big thing is he just wanted more of a, I think, more or less kind of a guarantee of more playing time, because especially on this team this year, he wasn't going to get, at least in terms of the big man minutes, he wasn't going to get more than Adu. And by all accounts, Adu was coming back. And so, understandably, Awaka entered the portal. And then, like 3-4 days later, kind of out of nowhere, I didn't see this coming, and I think a lot of Tennessee fans didn't see this coming. Jonas Adu enters the portal. And based on a few insiders and stuff, I think the team was kind of surprised about that. Given the amount of time he got this year, I don't know what his NIL situation is, but he was a all SEC defensive team guy. He really improved a lot this year and was a big part, at least in the regular season. Postseason, he had a tough time. But in the regular season, he was a big part of why we were so good this season. And so that was a little shocking. And then kind of come to find out that, in my favorite term right now for college guys, is his camp.
Yeah.
Adu's camp comes out saying that they, I guess, have encouraged him to enter the portal to go to a team that is going to highlight his kind of offense in terms of he wants to step out further and, show off, take threes and be way more of a stretch five. So like a center who's stretched further away from the rim and is more of an outside threat than what he was asked to do at Tennessee. And hearing that was the reason was kind of like ooh, I don't like that. Like it makes me wonder and I understand that a big thought of that is he wants to play in the league. Big guys in the league these days, you got to be able to shoot from the outside. You got to be able to stretch the floor, play 5 wide, and he maybe has a future in the league. So there's a part of me where I can understand that thought, but ooh, man, after the season you just had, which was a very good season, but the glaring problem with him was his inability to get physical in the post and get dominated by centers who were bigger than him. And anytime that matchup happened, he kind of either he tried and couldn't do it, or if you want to talk about the Purdue game, he got absolutely punked by Zach Edey and only played 10 minutes and rode the bench. And maybe that's a part of this decision, but kind of hearing that was the thought process of I'm entering the portal, or from his camp that he's entering the portal so he can go to a team where he can move further away from the basket. It kind of made me like, oh man, if that's what you want and that's your thought process, then all right, dude, go on and find that, because I really hoped we'd see a guy want to, put his head down and no, I'm going to get bigger and stronger and lean into the things that I didn't do well this season. And if that's not what he wants to do, then I like the player a lot, and I think he was a big part of why we were good this year. But okay, I'm more fine with you leaving if that's what you would prefer to do. Okay, good luck to you.
You think Rick feels that way too? I mean, I think we've seen
Probably.
Rick's system enough to know like they're going to play physical on both sides of the ball, and if you don't want to be a physical big man, then like
totally. I think if that's what you want to do, then this probably isn't the spot for you. Even though I do think he played really well for us this year.
Yeah.
Coming at least up until about SEC tournament time. So with that, there have been people thinking that like, well, does Tobe Awaka enter the portal to begin with if he knew that Adu was going to enter? It's because it seemed like nobody really thought that Adu was going to jump in the portal. So there's been some whispers and thoughts that Awaka might withdraw his name from the portal. It seems like the team is really high on JP Estrella, who was he was a freshman this year who, got a little bit of playing time throughout the year and came in for Adu in that Elite Eight game and played his dang butt off against Edey and just was really impressive. So it looks like the team's pretty high on Estrella. I wouldn't be surprised if he got a big step up in minutes next year. Might be the starting center. So there's a part of me think maybe Awaka coming back, thinking there's an opportunity for him to have more minutes, and he probably would get a lot more minutes, even with the staff being high on Estrella moving forward. So we'll see what happens there. The other big news heading into next season was we just announced in the portal a day or so ago. Great name, Darlinstone Dubar, who is a guard from Hofstra University. He's been at Hofstra the last 3 years, and last year I had an amazing season. He's 6'6", big guy, like 210, I think, 6'7", 6'6". But last year he averaged almost 18 points a game, really good shooter, shot almost 40% from three, averaged almost 7 rebounds a game, a couple assists, a steal, averaged a block a game. I mean, pretty much like he kind of can do it all. So everyone's pretty pumped about that get. Barnes still has some moves to make in the portal. I think maybe another guy or two, definitely another big man. There was talks of some guy from Belmont who is I think it's kind of coming down to us and UNC. So should be a pretty good get if Tennessee and UNC both want him. So next year's going to look a lot different. I'm excited for what it's going to be. Really excited for Darlinstone Dubar. What a fun name. I'm in just on the name alone.
Is the scuttlebutt true for the listening audience that Dubar could be very similar to Adult Connect 2.0?
I mean, it's hard to throw that out there.
Right. For what just happened, I'm sure everybody's like, don't
SEC player of the year and all that. But it seems like he's going to be, from what I haven't watched a lot of tape on Dubar yet, but just looking at his body type and the stats he put up, yeah, pretty much he's going to be the fill-in for Connect and probably be the number one option. Another guy that I'm really looking forward to seeing next year is Caden Carr, who's going to be a sophomore shooting guard. He came in a lot in cleanup minutes this year, but he has, from what they say, all the talent in the world, and he ain't afraid at all when he steps on that court. He will launch it from 35, 40 feet and hit a few of them this year. Yeah. Again, kind of mostly in mop-up time, but I was impressed with the limited amount of minutes he got, that he came in and was like, I don't care. I'm going to throw it down a tomahawk dunk and throw up a 40-footer and sink it. And I'm like, okay. That's fun. So I'm looking forward to next year. It will look a lot different, especially with Vescovy and Josiah gone, who 5 solid years of a lot of minutes from those two. So the team will look a lot different, but looking forward to it. I think it's going to be I don't think we'll be quite as good as we were this year, but I trust Rick, and I think we'll be a very competitive, good team in the SEC.
Yeah, I agree. It's hard to replace guys were core pieces of your program for so long. And, and again, we talked about trying to replace a Dalton Connect. It's about dang near impossible to replace a guy who was a finalist and a player of the year candidate. So,
yeah. Well, and also you just wonder, I don't think it's, if you were to say over under 2.5 more seasons from Rick Barnes, I'd probably take the under at this point.
I think it's
there's been a lot of whispers of the way he's talked about his relationship with Zakai Ziegler. When you hear Jimmy Dykes or someone else on calling Tennessee games, they always talk about Rick Barnes and his point guards, that that's always been a important position for him, and relationships that he values a lot. And there's been a lot of and I think it's mostly people maybe romanticizing this a little bit, but that next year's Zakai's last season as a senior. Does Rick Barnes really want to keep going without a Zakai Ziegler on the team? Who knows? I don't know. It's a romantic idea. But so I just think Barnes isn't gonna go out on a whimper. I don't think so. I'm sure we'll still be competitive and good next year, and looks like he's retooling the team to do just that.
Sure.
So, but yeah, I think a lot of Tennessee fans are like, let's, especially after this season, let's cherish this coach because he's probably the best we've ever had,
Hmm.
and up there with Bruce, probably past Bruce at this point.
I think so.
I would say past Bruce at this point. So, yeah,
I mean,
looking forward to it.
when the coaching search happens for Tennessee, like I thought ours was banana land. I mean, it's almost like the comfortable spot on the couch that you've joked about. Like we've been here before, we know this, but a little different. I feel like in basketball when you've had a guy for so long,
Yeah,
and what Rick will be, he'll be cherished. It'll be it'll be a sad day, I think,
yeah,
for Tennessee fans when Rick decides to retire versus what plenty of other fan bases are like, finally, we fired the guy, or thank you for leaving
yeah.
us, kind of thing. It'll be a sad day. And so it'll be interesting to see if they go the Kim English route. I
That's my guess. I don't foresee. You know,
Unless Danny just
Tim
thinks,
English seems to be like the coach in waiting. And for those that don't know, Kim English was the assistant here under Barnes for kind of like the first 5-6 years, and then he got a head coaching job at George Mason for a couple years, did really well there, and then this last season he took the job opening up at Providence, and they had a pretty good season too. They didn't make the tournament, but they were a bubble team.
yeah,
Um, and the whispers have been that when Rick's ready to go, he wants to hand it off to someone like Kim English. I think it's not going to be a Barnes is done. Let's open it up to everybody. Now, maybe it is. I mean, Danny White is a gangster
yeah,
athletic director, and who knows what happens. And again, we're talking years down the line here, so this is maybe all for nothing right now. But I have a feeling that he has done such a good job here in creating a culture and a top program and elevating Tennessee multiple levels from where it was when he picked it up. So I have a good feeling that whoever's next is going to be someone that Barnes has more or less handpicked or has a heavy amount of influence in what that next coach is going to be. And seems like the whispers right now are that Kim English is probably that person right now, but we'll see.
sure. We'll see. Well, dude, this has been one hell of a ride. Once again, I'm glad we got to do season 2 of Gold Standard Podcast. Man, shout out. I mean, couldn't have scripted this. I mean, this kind of felt a little bit like WWE type script where it was an absolute, maybe it's more absolute roller coaster for me personally, but I'm selfish in even thinking that. It was just a wild ride for both of our teams. Get to, see a guy who was trying to get the National Player of the Year. I get to watch the con man finally leave the program. Even though for a hot second it looks like he's trying to walk back and be like, "Oh, forgive me, I didn't mean to cheat on you," almost type of relationship. And then come to find out he was just trying to get Kentucky to counter when they were like, "No, we're not going to not only counter offer Arkansas, but you actually broke contract by talking to Ohio State back in February and nobody knew about it. Oh, and then you also talked to Arkansas before ever telling anybody in the Kentucky administration that you were having conversations with other school. You broke a contract. Guess what, buddy? You now leave your $33+ million for nothing. So see ya.
Bye.
Or otherwise, we can get lawyers involved and do that whole thing about how you broke contract, which I'm sure he's like, nah, I'll just go. So we did all that. We got to watch, you could probably say, the 2 best teams in America meet and play in the championship game. Little bit of a snoozer, but for a hot second,
UConn, man.
it was always UConn. Let's be honest. I don't know if it was ever really different from the jump. But yeah, we we've said leading up the entire season that like we sleep in May, and I know it's technically April 17th, but maybe it's time for us to take a nap for a little while. Especially me. I need a nap. Man, you got any like last dogs of the week, jabronis as we kind of close it out? I can give you one if
dog of the week. I don't really have one. I think we can both co-sign on jabroni of the year. See you later. Goodbye, John Vincent Palapari. Jabroni of the year.
Yep.
Enjoy your Tyson chicken in Fayetteville, Arkansas. Good luck to you.
Have fun. I hope they give you a lifetime supply of Tyson chicken simply for saying, sure, I'll come coach there for 5 years and call it a day. You gave us a gift by deciding to, dip out in the middle of the night. Couldn't have been any better. You try to leave in the middle of the night. Hopefully nobody notices. It's not a big deal. And of course it blows up and you get to go at your presser and sit there like it's a talk show with Oprah and be like, oh, we were trying not to let it get out and then it got out. And it's just like, dude, shut up. Your thing doesn't work. Arkansas fans, maybe you can join in on the jabroni part also. Enjoy your con man. Like,
yep.
You'll eat up everything he says. And then probably, I know I've said it before, but probably like 2 years into it, you'll get sick and tired of it. And you'll probably be like, why aren't we winning big time in postseason? Maybe he has like one more run. I wouldn't be shocked if he has like one big run left in him. Other than that, it'll be the same story. It'll get old. And then, he'll have to do his same song and dance. So, yeah, jabroni of the year, JVC. You're welcome, buddy. My dogs of the year, I'm going to give it to us. We didn't have to do this. We didn't have to do this. Yeah, for us. I'm grateful for our spouses that they say, sure. Dee Dee's finally gotten into like, are you recording this week? When are you recording? And I'm like, oh, man, I'm getting a little hot. Why? Sup? She's not going to like that when she hears that.
I can't say Erin's in the same place. It's like, what'd you do today? And if I ever thought like, oh yeah, me and Austin recorded, she's like, oh, that's cute. So, yeah,
cute.
Could be worse.
Yeah, I guess so.
Could be worse.
Could be worse. Like we don't have to do this. We do it because it gives us joy. We hope it gives the listening audience joy. If somebody ever wanted to pay us to do it, okay, I'll listen.
Please.
Yeah. Seriously.
Make me say no.
For make us say no.
Make us say no.
Yeah, then I'll also like jump in a little bit on the jabroni part, more of the day, not of the year. Sustained a little bit of a forearm injury here.
Oh God.
Maybe that's what I get for making a comment about the arthritis community at whatever point I did during this season. Look, I don't know. I'm saying if that's the reason why, but maybe it's not a coincidence that when I try to enjoy my favorite hobby that I happen to coach in golf, go to Top Golf, and then like my forearm's been hurting for a couple weeks. I was like, man, maybe that's what I get for making fun of folks who've sustained arthritis in their fingers or whatever. Not trying to make fun of people who have it. Just saying, I'm there with you.
Did you strain something?
I don't know, man. I was talking to my dad about it this morning. He's like, yeah, sounds like you probably like right here where you're swinging a golf club. I was like, I'm going to trust the medical professional that.
Yeah, probably.
Makes sense. But
hey, thank you for playing hurt.
Yeah, I'm trying to do. I'm playing in a tournament in 2 weeks. Yeah, good for me. I've got to like be ready for it. So, jabroni, I'll sit in there for a hot second and then we'll move on. Yeah, man. Going into the summer, we got Charlie's T-ball season starts tomorrow. Actually tomorrow and Friday. So pumped for that. We got golf tryouts today. It's a big week.
Wow.
Yeah, got to go find some ringers, just walk around the hallway. Hopefully somebody will show out for Pal Golf. Otherwise we could be hurting, but we'll see. I don't know if we've ever been on top of the mountain for Pal Golf, but I don't know. Maybe we'll find somebody.
This is
heading
the
into
year.
summer. Yeah, this is the year. Who am I kidding? We'll find her. We'll find our dog. So, you got any fun things coming up in the next couple weeks?
Well,
Hey, we are going to
fortunate
Valhalla.
enough, I'm heading with you up to Valhalla for the
That's
PGA
right.
Championship. I got the
Oh,
invite. I was honored. I've never been to a golf tournament before
me
as a
either.
fan, so I'm excited for that one.
It's going to be great. My credit card is going to take an absolute beating. I don't even care. As the person who technically oversees our finances, I'm just laying it
Dee,
out
don't
there.
look at the statement.
Yeah, don't, Dee. I know that, Dee. I'm looking at you through the camera. I know that your mantra is to look at our bank like once every 3 months, and then you freak out. Be like, what was this all about? And I have to say, well, it was actually from your checking account or from your debit card.
Oh.
That's where the transaction. Oh, I spent how much on my credit card? Yeah. So I'm just going ahead and say it. Credit card's going to be on fire when we get to Valhalla. Don't even care. Yeah, we'll have a great time at Valhalla. But other than that, like, we're all just going to enjoy summer, enjoy postseason, watch some baseball.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
man, it's been a fun ride. Maybe we'll do an episode during the summer or two. Like, maybe we just get a rando guest appearance. Like, my cousins reached out. He'd been like, "So when are you going to have me on?" I'm like, "We'll have cousin Wes on. Who's to say?"
Cousin Wes. I don't know
Yeah,
Cousin Wes.
he's maybe the most athletic person I've ever met.
Wow.
Yeah, which if you ever meet him, he would probably be like, "Nah, man." But I'm telling you, for like both of us being 5'7" and having like square body shapes, it kind of doesn't make sense in some degree. But like,
Okay.
watch that man. I mean, you thought he was the Steph Curry back of '09 at Seymour High School.
Wow.
I've seen him do some stuff. I'm like, that physically doesn't make sense.
Cousin Wes.
Especially when we were at intramurals freshman year of college. I'm like, just give him the rock, let him ball. But yeah, he played it all: basketball, football, baseball. I'll let him talk about his moments at Seymour. He knows ball too, man. So, cousin
Okay.
Wes, maybe we get Big Don on. That'd be fun.
Could be fun.
Could be.
Big Don, I know you're listening.
Is he our biggest fan? Maybe we don't need to go into that. Maybe.
I don't know.
Not our call. We'll leave it up to the fans. Hoops. It's been a fun ride. Good season 2. Looking forward to more. Until then, let's go take a nap. What do you say?
Sounds good, bro.
Big Papa, it's Bobby Hoops.
Bobby Hoops.
Thanks for tuning in. Love you guys. See you.